On this episode, we're going to talk about a good first testing tool that you might want to invest in, and the price might surprise you. Welcome to the show where we tackle the tough questions submitted by installers, estimators, project managers, ICT personnel, even customers. We are connecting at the human level so that we connect the world. If you're watching this show on YouTube, would you mind hitting the subscribe button and the bell button to be notified when new content is being created? If you're watching us on or listening to us on one of the audio podcast platforms like Stitcher or Apple, would you mind leaving us a 5-star rating? Those simple little steps helps us take on the algorithm so that we can educate, encourage, and enrich the lives of people in the ICT industry. Thursday night, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. What are you doing? I do a live stream on LinkedIn, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, where you get to ask your favorite RCDD your questions about installation, design, certification, qualification, project management, even career advice. But I can hear, but Chuck, I'm driving my truck at 6 p.m. I'm going to be in an accident. I can't watch a live stream. That's okay. I got you covered. They're recorded, and you can access them at letstalkcabling.com. And finally, while this show is free and will always remain free, if you would like to support this platform, would you mind scanning this QR code right there? That QR code, you can buy me a cup of coffee. You can even schedule a 15-minute one-on-one call with me, after hours, of course. And you can also support the program by just sharing this content. So this episode, I want to talk about a tool, a good all-around tool that can help you do a lot of tasks for a very good price. One of the biggest problems that I see quite often is technicians not labeling stuff. And then all of a sudden you've got 12, 20, 24 cables not labeled. What's an efficient way to label that? And then also, what about those? Not everybody's issued a brand new certifier when they go work for a new company. You know why? Because they're not cheap. But you don't always necessarily need a certifier when you're out in the field running. So, what's a good all around first tool to do all these tasks for you? Well, I was at the Bixie Nika Summit last week. And while I was there, I visited all of the booths like I always do. And I'm sitting there, I was taking a break, resting my old tired dogs. And Tom Jallo comes up to me, says, Chuck, come over here. Come over here. You got to talk to me. You got to talk to me. And he raggles me into come over into his booth. And we got to talking. I thought it was going to be like a 5-minute conversation, but I swear I think we talked for like an hour. I think we talked till the exhibit hall ended. That's what happens when two like-minded people get together. So let's bring him on so we can talk about this subject. So welcome to the show, Tom Jallo from Softing. Tom, how you doing, buddy?
Chuck, I'm doing great. Better than I deserve, I guess, as they say, right?
There you go. So for the couple people in this industry who may not know you or who you are, why don't you give us the 30-second 30-second overview, who you are and who is Softing?
Sure. Softing is a company we've been around since the 70s. A German-based company. Um, the majority of the time we've been in industrial automation, right? So making manufacturing plants talk to each other, basically communications, to, different protocols, different communication types for years and years. About let's see, 12 or so years ago, Softing acquired their first IT networks type tool, which is the WireXpert 4500, and we've been servicing that tool and keeping it relevant and making excellent use of it ever since then. We've also added a number of other tools, which we're going to talk about today. But that's more or less who Softing is. A pretty wide portfolio of IT networks, tools, and solutions. Okay. As far as me personally, I've been working for Softing for about 8 years now, roughly. I started out on the support side, so and I still do that to a great degree today. I have conversations with technicians who need to know how to test something, need to know how to deal with a problem application. And they're literally in the closet with their smartphone calling up saying, hey, how do I do this? Can I send you a picture of this? How do we solve this problem? How do we test out of it? How do we talk to an AHJ? How do we stay within standards? How do we navigate? So that's fun. There's a lot of little adventures that you get to have there. But more recently, I've started another role within Softing, which is business development. Right. So I get to talk to people like you and kind of show off some things to I guess bigger audiences rather than just talking to one poor soul who's trying to solve a problem in the closet or the equipment room. I'm talking to larger audiences.
You know, I just kind of off track here. This is how my squirrel brain works. You mentioned people, text calling you from the telecom room with their smartphones. I remember many a day as a technician, having a problem, calling up a manufacturer or a test company with my butt set in the telecom room, trying to verbally explain what was going on. Smartphones and the ability to take pictures and
Oh
text
yeah.
pictures, just they enhance that communication so much. People nowadays don't understand or don't truly appreciate
Mhm.
how much easier communication is now than it was back, back in those times.
A picture is worth 1,000 words. You do get a picture from the field, you can see. Oh, you mean you're attaching multi-mode fiber to a single mode tester?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
What?
It's funny you say that
Yeah.
because
How about that?
we had it. I have a day job and a night job, right? The podcast is my
Yeah.
night job. My day job, somebody called the company that I work for, and they said, "Look, we need to file a warranty because your fiber's broken. It's not working. Blah 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 blah." And they said, "Okay, well, send us some pictures." And they sent us pictures, and they were plugging the wrong type of fiber in. I was
Yeah.
like, "Oops."
Yeah. Yeah. Pictures help a lot.
Yes, they did.
It is important. It's not everything, but it definitely aids in the discussion. That's for sure.
Absolutely, absolutely does. So the reason we're having the show is because when I was walking around the trade show and I saw you booth, I stop at everybody's booth. I talk to everybody,
Mhm.
and I noticed that you had an office locator kit, and you didn't call it. You call it something else though. You and I were kind of we weren't
Yeah.
we were talking like different languages. Like I was talking French and you were talking Spanish or something. You're like, it's a
Yeah.
what? It's a what? It's an office locator kit. You know. Um,
Yes.
because I know we're supposed to label our cables while we're pulling them. I know
Mhm.
we are. But you know what? Labels fall off. You know what? The new guy forgets to put labels on. You know what? The new guy puts wrong labels on.
Mhm.
And if it's just a onesie twosie, that's a perfect tool for a toner and probe. Okay.
Mhm.
But if the new guy just did a total brain fart and you just ran 20, 25 cables that you don't
Mhm.
know where they're going, the office locator kit is the perfect thing. And you had one sitting right there on the desk. You should
Yep.
you should put a spotlight on it. Like a halo coming from this.
I had more than one on the desk. I actually have a couple of those options for what you're calling office locator kits.
What is
Uh,
it you called it? You called it something else.
yeah, so uh, we call them remote targets at times. There's a few different names. Realize that sometimes individuals get kind of pigeonholed in their little portion of industry, and I am just as guilty as anybody else, right? Um, um, you know, in the ICT world and stuff like that, there's sometimes different terminology.
Yep.
But basically, the technology that we're talking about today is the ability to plug a very small, simple device and multiples of them. That's key. Having multiples at the end of cables, and then using a larger tester of some degree that identifies the number of that locator smaller device that's
Right.
on the end.
Do
That's
you have one there on
basically
your
what we're
desk by
talking about.
chance that you can lift up and show us?
I I have a few. Let's grab a couple real quick,
While he's
actually.
grabbing us, what he's talking about is so they come in kits and they come in different sizes, but the one that he had on the desk had 24 RJ45. There you go. There's a picture of it. And
Let's see if
so
we
for
get
those of
that
you
in
in
there.
audio, it's there's 24 little yellow RJ45s with number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, all the way up to 24. You disconnect one, you plug it into a jack. When you plug the tester on the other side, it tells you what number it is. Now, that's the reason that's good is because if you've got 20, 25 cables like modular furniture, right? You got clustered modular furniture together. None of them were labeled. You can plug those all in, and then on the other side in the telecom room, you can plug your tester in. And you can say, okay, you're talking radio. Okay, that's cable number 1. That's cable number 2, and you can do it all in one shot instead of having to go to each individual one and tone them out with the Toner and Pro.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the basic idea. And in other parts of the industry, it doesn't have to be in an office. It doesn't have to be at a TO. It can be at really any connection. We'll put it that way. I want to try to be as inclusive to all the different little worlds that use networks out there, right? And so realize, what I just showed is a male RJ45 or 8P8C, right?
Mm-hmm.
To stay current, I guess, right? So this is male, and there's a lot of them, and it doesn't look like much, which is nice. So it's relatively inexpensive. So if you happen to leave this behind on a job site, you'd be miffed, but it wouldn't be grounds for firing or demoting yourself or something to that effect, right?
So what you're saying is the employee deduction for leaving a tool behind would probably only be on like 1 or 2 paychecks instead of like a year's worth of paychecks.
That's right. It's not a deal breaker. So it gets as simple as that, right? And you could even have these for coax if you're still working with that type of cabling, right? But it also gets a little bit more complicated. We'll show more of these in a moment. So this is a little bit more to that. You can see I've got a number 1 and a number 7 there, and there's some indication on that. And at the top of that, there is a female connection there, right? So I can take a male RJ45 or 8P8C into that, right? So there's a little bit more to it there. You can have a little more I guess diversity in the way that you attack this problem, and we'll show what's happening at the other end of the tester as well in a moment.
Right. Now you said coax, and then you said for the a lot of people who don't have the time in the industry like you and I have, right? They just think everything is balanced towards pair cabling. Coax cable is a good transmission medium. It absolutely, that's why they use it in central offices.
Yep.
And that's where you're going to use probably the locator kit or the targets as you call them. I can't call it an office locator kit in the central office because there are no offices that you're targeting, right? So that's probably why you guys gave it that name. So coax cable is a really good cable. Another interesting conversation you and I had at that table that day, and that's why I wanted to kind of get you on the show, because I wanted to have that conversation again, but this time recorded so we can put it out there.
Sure.
We got talking about certifiers, right? And I won't say that you and I were arguing, but we were different mindsets.
Okay.
And you actually convinced me, because I've always held the hard line that if you're a contractor and you're out there putting in cables, you need to certify every cable that you do when you install it. You give it like a birth record, right? And then you kind of took a counterpoint to that. And after some discussion, I think you swayed me. What was your counterpoint again?
Oh, I think I probably made a few.
You did.
I probably made a few. Let me just speak generally. So first off, I'm going to give my my caveat here, or I'm not against certification. I think that it is a fantastic testing of a cable, and it definitely has its place, and I don't think it's really ever going to go away, right? But I think that it's a little narrow-minded to think that it's the only way that network cabling can be tested. Okay, in other words, there are different stages in a job that may require a different type of test, even if you have a certifier, right? So even if you have access to a certifier, a large contractor, small contractor, those tools, as you mentioned, I think in the intro of this session here, you mentioned cost. That tool is expensive, right? It typically gets treated like a library book contractor. In other words, they have to. It doesn't
Find it
stay on the
out.
truck. It's got to be checked out, and we write down the name of the guy who has it, so that I make sure that I get it back and it doesn't disappear or fall off the back of the truck or something to that effect.
The good contractors do that. The good
Yes.
contractors.
Sure. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Or maybe I don't know. There's a lot of different scenarios there, but
Right.
it's an expensive tool, right? And the technicians that use that tool have to have or should have some specific training to be able to use that tool correctly, right? At the very least, you need to know your link definition. So let's talk about permanent link versus channel link. Your technicians sure as heck should know what the difference between those two are. And in today's world, they should probably also know what an NPTL link is, right? Hopefully all of them know that and they know how to test that correctly, right? Because all certifiers, including the one that Softing makes, they're not they don't know what you're connecting to them. Okay. In other words, it's possible to fool a certifier into testing incorrectly. It's also possible to use the wrong link definition. It's also possible to test to the wrong category. All of those things can be done and essentially give you false passes or false fails, which when you're testing to a very specific standard is pretty useless, right? And so it's just good practice, I think, to have a second choice, a second way to test a cable. It's good practice to have a tester that your technicians don't have to be trained up on all the rules of certification, so that a technician can just kind of easily step into a cable testing scenario and test it. It may be a good scenario for users to go through and pre-test with just something as simple as a wire mapper, right? To be able to prove that the cabling is done at least with a correct wire map before I come in and do a 500 megahertz sweep for near and crosstalk issues, for instance, which is what happens on a certifier, right?
Right.
Workflow has a lot to have in it. So sometimes I think, especially I think to technicians and organizations, they sometimes get the impression that um, um, we as manufacturers and thought leaders and things like that in our industry are saying there's only one way to do something, and I disagree with that. I think that there's multiple ways to skin that cat, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Because you and I talked about this. Not every company issues a certifier to every employee when
Mhm.
they get hired because they're expensive. Um, and often you have to, like I said, the better companies are going to have some method of tracking those very expensive testers, and
Yes.
hopefully some method of tracking of when those certifiers are due to be calibrated. Hello, pay attention,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
But you know what? You're right. It's not the end all. It's not the end all for everything. Like if like give you a scenario, and this actually kind of happened to me one time on a project. It was a large law firm. We got there. I had the crew unloading the truck. I went upstairs and meet with the customer. And of course, I got my backpack with me, and I'm meeting with the customer. The customer says, before we talk about the project, one of the senior partners, corner office of a law firm, their data drop's not working. It was working yesterday, but it's not working today. Can you fix that real quick?
Hmm.
Do you think I'm going to run all the way back downstairs to the loading dock to get my certifier, or am I going to use a verifier that I have in my back pocket? So there are scenarios where certifiers a certifier can absolutely verify test continuity, transposals, reversals, and all that stuff. Well, we're chasing squirrels again. That happens with me sometimes. Sometimes I get on a subject and go down left field. The whole episode was to talk about a good first testing tool.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that because you showed me the tool that you had,
Hmm.
and it did a lot of things. I was thinking this is a perfect tool for a crew who's not going to carry certifier all the time. I'm talking like a service tech, so I'm just like an installation crew that they can because a lot of times in our industry we're specialized. We'll have one crew do the cabling, another crew come in and do the fiber, or
Hmm.
one crew come and do the cabling, another crew come and do the testing and certification. So for the crew that's doing the installation, that's a perfect tool because it does I think like what 4 or 5 functions.
That's right, 4 or 5 functions, and let's go back to your hypothetical testing scenario with this crew. There's happen to be some active equipment also already on this job site?
Yeah, let's say yes. Let's just say yes.
Sure, sure. So there's a switch. Let's say that we've installed the big switch in the equipment room, and we'd also like to test maybe there's some PoE that's being deployed, right? So
Yep.
the need to have kind of a multi-function tool that can do some kind of quick, simple detection of issues, basic cabling issues, but also jump into that next realm of active network testing is there. And if you're going to have that tool, it'd be really nice if it had a really long battery life and also fit in your pocket, right?
Right.
So
I don't know of any certifiers that fit in pockets.
no, no, no. They're typically being wielded around if you've got a good one, it's got a nice hard
Hard case.
rigid case. I want to say
Yep.
pelican type case, right? I don't,
Right.
but yeah, typically it's going to be like that, and you've got to sign out for it and stuff like that. What we're talking about for this type of tool, you said it before, it's like a toolbox tool. It's something
Right.
that the technician typically is actually responsible for, whether that's a big contractor or a small contractor. It's a tool that they take home at night. It's a tool that goes in their kit. They know it inside and out. It's super dependable, that kind of thing. That's the type of tool that we're talking about, um, rather than the big certification testers, right?
Oh, absolutely. I'm in a lot of social media groups because that's just my way of staying current. And whenever the question comes up, what kind of tester should I get, or what kind of tester is the best tester? That tester is mentioned all quite often.
hmm
Your MX2. No, not the MX2. What's it called again? I forgot. My mind put a blank on me.
Yeah, so it's the LinkXpert is the tool that
Link expert. But isn't
we've been beting.
you have a M version? No, there's
hmm
two of them. A T,
Yeah, there's two versions. There is the TP, which stands for
TP. That's what it was.
twisted pair. That's copper only, right?
Right.
Okay, and then the other version is the M3, which is
M3.
three media. So it's for copper, fiber, and Wi-Fi, right? Now, the TP on the copper side has the M3, I should say, has all the functions that the TP does when it comes to the copper cabling, but it has the added benefit of testing fiber and Wi-Fi. And we'll walk through all of those. I'll show both the tools
Mhm.
moment or in a moment or so. Um, there's a price break there for the TP, but really what we've seen take off and what we have a ton of interest in is the M3. It's just too fun to ignore when you have that much firepower sitting in your pocket, you know.
How much more is the M3 than over the TP?
So the M3 is right at 1600 MSRP, and the
Okay.
TP is just below 1000 MSRP. Okay.
Okay.
Um,
That's actually, I mean, for all the extra stuff that you get, uh, that's not that much of a difference. It really isn't.
No, no, and like I said, when we show, like, we talked. I think we talked also about like the different roles that you would use this in, like as a, as a bonus tool in certain situations. Some people like who have IT roles and stuff like that are going to be
Right.
using it for their only tester, and there's nothing wrong with that. But people who are even trained with the certifier will also have a need at times for this type of tool to do quick checks or to do PoE testing
Mhm.
or just to use the office locator kits that we're want to also kind of showcase today, or we're
Right.
intended to kind of showcase today. So there's just a number of rules. It's just a good general all around tool. Um, uh, I have I'm kind of spoiled, right? I probably got it better than just about any technician out there because it's almost like my tester budget is never ending because I
Right.
work for a manufacturer. I have a large case with just about every tool you can imagine: copper, fiber, Wi-Fi, you name it. And if somebody asks me to go step onto a job site and take a look at a problem, the first tool I typically pull out, it's not the certifier,
Right.
right?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So what is it? What you said it tests Wi-Fi, PoE, copper, and fiber. What's it test for the PoE? Is it doing load testing, or is it just measuring?
Yes, it does a true PoE load test. So it will connect to the PSE, negotiate a connection, and then put an actual electrical load on that port. Okay, so you will see the wattage at the device, you will see the voltage at minimum and maximum load. So that's a significant test. And if you compare that to a lot of other PoE testers out there, that's a better test. That's relevant when you have a situation where you've got a PoE budget, right? You've
Right.
got a big 24 port PoE managed switch, right? And it's probably says something on the box like this is 1,000 watt or 300 watt switch or something like that.
Mhm.
Well, 300 watts can be divided up a lot of different ways between
Yes, it
those
can.
ports, and eventually you're going to run out of wattage, right?
Mhm.
And so when you do a PoE test like this tester can do, you'll know if your device will be actually getting what it deserves, or if it's going to get cut off
Right, right.
from that PSE. So that's a better test, and that's what people are looking for in those situations.
So what is the test for the Wi-Fi? What's it testing?
So we got a number of tests we could do on the Wi-Fi. It will do an access point scan. Okay, so you can just quickly connect, and it will pull the SSID as well as the unique identifier. That's the BSSID. That's the one that looks like a MAC address, right?
I
So,
see.
like if you're running a mesh network or with lots of SSIDs, you'll be able to see the unique radios and what frequency they're pushing, the channel that they're running. You'll see some throughput information on there as well. It's got a nice little access point scan, and it will generate a report of that as well, right? So it's nice. I'll show you that as well when we actually put this thing on screen.
Gotcha. Well, let's go and put it on screen now.
All right, let me put my hands on. This is the tester here, and I forgot. I'm going to grab my smartphone so we get an idea of size right away. I
Okay.
have a fairly small Android, right? And if you look at the footprint of this tool versus the phone, we are talking really about the same size.
Right.
Okay. The difference is this is very thin. Now, this is a little bit thicker, right? Okay. This would be the TP or the twisted pair copper only tester here, and the M3 tester here. They are the exact same size. The M3 has a protective sleeve on it, right? To
Right.
be able to allow that thing to bounce off the ground if you're
Yeah,
got.
let me ask you this question, Tom. The
Mhm.
difference between the TP and the M3, is
Mhm.
it only software or is there actual differences in the internal circuitry?
There's differences in the circuitry when it comes to
Okay.
testing other things. So let's just take a look at the top of the tester. Okay. Again, we've got the TP on this side and the M3 on this side.
Right.
On this side, I just have a copper testing port. Here, I have a copper testing port. I have an SFP bay for fiber testing of varieties, right? I also have
Right.
a visual fault locator built in. Both of the testers have built-in flashlights
That's cool.
on board.
When you showed me that at the booth, I was like, that's cool because how many times have I grabbed my flashlight and the battery was
Mhm.
dead?
Yeah, yeah, and it's a powerful little light. You'll be able to see all around a rack or look for your keys or whatever. And the way that it works is it can be it can even you can even use the flashlight when the tester itself is off. So it's pretty cool.
Hmm.
Um, and then on the side we just have USB and a power charging port, internal battery. The battery life on this tester, I've gone a couple days of use with this tester. Continuous, I would say in continuous use, I would say at least 8 hours or so is what we're
Okay.
talking about, right? But there's also little timeouts on the screen and stuff like that. It's really gonna dwarf any other tester in this area as far as
Gotcha.
battery life. It's fantastic.
So it stores test results?
It does. It does.
And can you download those test results?
Yes, you can.
What
You
file
can.
format does it download them in?
It delivers those files currently in PDF,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
So with PDF, I mean that's going to go wherever you need it to go. There's currently no need for additional software on this tester right now.
Gotcha.
Okay, all right. You simply unload the testers or the reports onto a PD or onto a USB stick, and then email them to whoever needs to see them. Okay,
Gotcha.
it's that simple. Okay. Now we do have some future plans for some optional software for this tester, but that's another conversation, and I don't want to get in trouble for saying something I shouldn't have to say there.
Right, right.
So
So let me ask you this, because the software that you download with your certifier,
Mhm.
is this software compatible with the software for your certifier, or are those just apples and oranges?
Um, well, there's no software for this tester,
Gotcha.
right? So there's
So it
nothing.
just does a PDF dump is what it's doing.
Correct,
Okay, I
correct.
gotcha.
At this time, right? That may change very soon.
Gotcha.
Okay. So yeah, let me just show you some functionalities here on the tester. Let's just do a cable test real quick so you can see that. And I'm also, if you notice on my screen, I'm sharing the screen from my M3 over here on the right side of my screen.
Yep, I see it.
So you'll be able to see exactly what's going on this tester when I go through the various tests. I'm going to connect, let's just do a simple cable test and take a look at how that looks. I'm going to connect um, here into this RJ45, and I'm going to grab a remote end, one of these things I flashed earlier. I'm going to connect into the tester, and I'm just going to hit the auto test button. And you can see it's pulled up a label, link 032.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
And now let's just go ahead and hit the test button. And there it is. It's that fast. So is it less than a second or so? You can see the results. You can see the length of the cable, right?
Right.
I can see the full wire map in color, right? I can see there's no shield. You also notice that this is a number 7 on the remote end, and that's being indicated right there on the tester.
Yep,
Okay.
sure enough. Let me ask you this. How does it know which wiring scheme it is? Because did we tell the tester in advance we're using A or B?
You can choose. You can change that back and forth between A and B. Yes,
And so depending on which one you pick, that'll be the colors it displays.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's
Okay.
correct. Okay. You'll also notice. I don't know if it's barely. Well, I was slightly off screen, but if you notice on my remote end, I've got LED indication for 4 pairs and a shield if I had a shield.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
So if you're doing one person testing or 2 person testing, there's a benefit in either one of those scenarios. You get indication on the remote side. And again, this is a tester that is a fraction of the price compared to other test tools, right?
Right.
Okay. Now we started down this road to talk about office locator kits. So I just showed you number 7, right?
Yep.
The kit comes with number 1. Okay, if you buy it completely stock, here's number 1. Okay, let's just do another test on number 1 here, right? And let's just hit the test button, and there it is. Basically, same exact results, but I can see a number 1 there,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
So imagine the scenario, right? I'm going to go into various office locations. I've got a 1, a 7, a 5. I can actually have a 1 through 8 if I buy these additional accessories,
Gotcha.
right? I wire up 8 different TOs, okay, or I connect 8 different TOs. And then I take one trip over to the patch panel with this tester, and I connect at the patch panel to each of those, and I'll get a result and then a number telling me which TO I'm connecting to at the test screen, right?
Gotcha.
So your productivity that in this situation, think about each time you have to walk between a TO and the patch panel as loss of productivity.
Yeah, and multiply it by the hourly rate of the technician or the installer. Absolutely.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
I just saved 8 trips,
Yep.
right?
Absolutely.
And I don't know. I have to think about that. There may be double because you'd have to make maybe 2 trips back and forth, maybe
Yep.
16 trips right there,
Yep.
right? So that is kind of the premise of the office locator. Now we sell these for, these are a little bit of a luxury because you get a full wire map there. If you wanted to go even bigger than just the 1 through 8 there, I showed you this earlier,
Right.
right? And this is a male rather than a female. Okay, so what if I want to do that? Well, let's get a longer cable run just for example here. So I've got a spooled up, let's say it would be a permanent link, and let's connect to that cable. And let's get on screen here, sorry. And let's connect number 20 to the end of this run. And let's just do this test again. There it is. Number 20.
So this one, it didn't do the wire map.
That's right.
Okay.
It did not do the wire map there because you've got a lesser far end, but you are getting it's only Office Locator Kit, right? Or Target, as I was calling him earlier, right? Okay. So this is a less expensive. There's more of them, right? But you can use either one in this testing scenario for office location. For the full wire map, I need the bigger remote.
Make sure you stick around for part 2. Remember, knowledge is power.
That's it for this episode of today's podcast. We hope you were able to learn something. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on future content. Also, leave a rating so we can help even more people learn about telecommunications. Until next time, be safe.